Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're looking at something really fascinating. It's not just, old stones in ruins.
Not at all.
We're actually stepping into a real puzzle, almost like a time machine, that gives us a glimpse into just how brilliant ancient India really was. We're diving deep into the Konark Sun Temple.
And it truly is a marvel, isn't it? It's located about 35 kilometers from Puri in Odisha, right there on the banks of the Chandrabhaga River.
Right.
And its design is famous. It's like this colossal chariot built for the sun god Surya himself.
Gold by horses.
Yes, 7 majestic horses and these 24 incredibly intricate wheels. It's so significant, UNESCO actually declared it a World Heritage Site way back in 1984.
But here's where it gets really intriguing, the kind of central mystery that's baffled people for, well, over a century now. Why was this magnificent 800-year-old temple ordered to be completely closed up, sealed off and filled with sand and soil back in 1903?
And perhaps the even bigger question,
Yeah.
why 123 years later is it still closed today? You can't go inside the main sanctum.
Exactly. Think about that. We're talking about a structure built centuries ago, and somehow they incorporated things like a really sophisticated iron lock system.
It's advanced for its time.
Totally. And wheels that actually worked as this incredibly accurate ancient timepiece, a sundial.
Right. The precision is amazing.
And maybe the most astonishing thing, this idol of the sun god that, according to accounts, just hung in the air, no visible support.
Apparently held up by a massive 52-ton magnet at the top. It just makes you wonder.
It really does. What kind of knowledge did they have access to 800 years ago?
So our mission for this deep dive is basically to peel back those layers. We want to explore all these mysteries, look at the incredible ancient technologies they use.
Trace its history.
Exactly. Trace its remarkable history and try to uncover the scientific facts that are sort of embedded within this stunning piece of ancient Indian science and art based on the sources we've looked at.
Okay, let's start with that mystery then, the closed doors.
Yeah.
So, 1903. The Lieutenant Governor of Bengal, a man named J.A. Birtle, sometimes you see it as J. Brandley, he visits Konark.
Right. A key moment.
And whatever he saw there, it led him to give this really drastic order. Seal all the temple doors, fill the sanctorum, the main inner sanctuary, completely with sand and soil. I mean, why? Why do something that sounds so extreme?
Well, the official reasoning, the justification given at the time, was structural preservation.
Okay.
The argument was that the sand filling would basically act as internal support, bearing the immense weight of the inner parts of the temple and stopping it from collapsing.
Oh, okay.
Especially since, the technology for large-scale structural repair back then was pretty limited compared to today.
Makes sense, I suppose.
And, history books often credit the British for taking the step to save the temple. But whether it was actually the right decision, well, that's still really debated today among experts.
And the really striking thing, as we said, is that it stayed that way, sealed for 123 years. The general public just can't get inside that main part.
Completely inaccessible. Though it's worth mentioning there was a recent development. In 2022, the Indian government, working through the Archaeological Survey of India, announced plans to actually remove all that sand.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and carry out a full renovation. But as far as we know, that work hasn't actually been completed yet. So for now, it remains sealed.
Which, just brings us right back to that nagging question, doesn't it?
Mm.
Could there be something else inside? Some secret hidden in that sanctum that's been deliberately kept away from the world for all this time?
It definitely fuels the speculation, what might be inside that sealed chamber.
Right. But maybe to understand why someone would go to such lengths or why it's so special, we need to rewind, go back to its origins, the legends, the vision behind it.
Absolutely. You have to understand where it came from. The mythical origin story actually starts with Samba. He was the son of Lord Krishna and Jambavati. And he was apparently incredibly handsome, famous for his looks, but that beauty tragically kind of became his downfall.
How so?
Well, pride got the better of him. He started thinking he was the most handsome being anywhere. And then the story goes that Narada Muni, the celestial sage who often stirs things up.
Right, the divine messenger, sometimes troublemaker.
Exactly. He subtly sort of provoked Samba, asking him if he didn't want to show off his good looks among the gopis, the cowherd women associated with Krishna.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Samba, full of vanity, did exactly that. Lord Krishna saw this, found it deeply disrespectful, an offense to his dignity, and in a moment of, divine anger, he cursed Samba.
Cursed him. With what?
Decreed that his beautiful body would be afflicted with leprosy.
Wow. That's harsh.
And the curse apparently took effect immediately. His body became deformed. Utterly desperate, Samba eventually sought help from Maharishi Katyayana.
A wise sage.
Yes. And the sage advised him. You need to perform intense penance, worship Suryadev, the sun god, go to the banks of the Chandrabhaga River in a place called Mitravana, and do this for 12 long years.
12 years? That's serious commitment.
Absolutely. Samba went all in, total devotion, severe penance, even gave up food and water for periods.
And did it work?
It did. Suryadev was pleased with this incredible devotion, appeared to Samba, blessed him, and miraculously cured the leprosy. His health and beauty were completely restored.
Amazing. So what did Samba do then?
Well, filled with just immense gratitude, he vowed to build a temple, the very first temple dedicated to Suryadev, right there at the spot where he did his penance.
Ah, so that's the connection.
That's the mythical origin. And that's supposedly how the place got its name. Konark, Kona, meaning direction or corner, and Ark, meaning the sun.
Konark, the corner or angle of the sun.
Precisely. And the design, even back then, was supposedly so specific that the very first ray of the rising sun would fall directly onto the main idol inside the sanctum.
Incredible.
Yeah.
But the temple we see today, that huge chariot structure, that's not the original one Samba built.
No, historians are quite clear on that. The current Konark Sun Temple, the one that's partially standing, is actually the fourth version built on or near that site.
The fourth one. Who built this one?
This one was commissioned by the very famous King Narasimhadeva I from the Ganga dynasty. It was a massive project built between roughly 1238 CE and 1264 CE. So we're talking the 13th century.
Okay, 13th century. What prompted him to build such a colossal temple?
Well, there's a powerful story behind that, too. A lot of the credit goes to his mother, the Queen Mother Kasturi Devi.
It's his mother.
Yes. She apparently urged him, really pushed him, to build a temple for Suryadev that would be so magnificent, so grand, it would actually rival the temple his own father had built, the famous Lord Jagannath Temple in Puri.
Ah, a bit of dynastic rivalry, perhaps?
Maybe partly, but also it was intended as a statement, a towering symbol to show the world the immense wealth, the power, the glory of the Ganga dynasty.
So King Narasimhadeva takes this on. He wants something unique, something timeless.
Exactly. He tasked his minister to find the absolute best architect available. And that search led them to a master artisan named Bisu Maharana.
Bisu Maharana.
He was chosen to lead the project. They laid the foundation right there beside the Chandrabhaga River. And for 12 solid years, an army of craftsmen, sources say, around 1,200 skilled workers toiled day and night, shaping these enormous stones into the chariot temple.
1,200 people for 12 years. The scale is just mind-boggling. And the engineering must have been something else.
Oh, incredibly advanced for the time. They used primarily sandstone, huge blocks of it, but the way they joined them was ingenious. They used iron clamps.
Iron clamps, like interlocking them.
Yeah, essentially a kind of sophisticated iron lock system, as some sources describe it. It shows a really deep understanding of structural engineering, material science. They were clearly way ahead of their time.
But there's a human story here too, right? A poignant one, even tragic.
Yes, absolutely. It involves the chief architect, Bisu Maharana, and his son. As the temple was nearing completion, they hit a major snag, placing the final massive stone at the very top, the pinnacle or kalasha.
The crowning piece.
Exactly. And for some reason, the experienced artisans just couldn't get it right. They tried again and again, but it wouldn't seat properly. It was becoming a crisis.
And the king wasn't happy.
Not at all. King Narasimhadeva was known for being quite stern. He issued a decree. If that pinnacle isn't perfectly installed by the next sunrise, all 1,200 craftsmen will be put to death.
Oh my God. The pressure must have been immense.
Unbelievable. Fear just gripped the entire site. Bisu Maharana, the chief architect, was apparently in utter despair.
So what happened?
Well, at this exact moment, his son, Dharmapad, arrived. He was only 12 years old. And the story says he'd actually never even met his father before. He'd studied architecture from texts his father left behind.
A 12-year-old shows up.
Yeah. He saw the situation, saw the despair, and using his own knowledge, his own calculations, he basically figured out the problem. He offered to fix it.
A kid.
A brilliant kid. He climbed up to the very top of the temple, and in just a few hours, using his skills, he managed to perfectly set the massive pinnacle stone in place, something hundreds of master craftsmen couldn't do.
That's incredible. So everyone was saved.
Well, here's the tragic twist. Dharmapad, despite being only 12, was incredibly perceptive. He realized immediately what would happen next.
What do you mean?
He knew that if the king found out that a 12-year-old boy succeeded where all his highly paid, experienced artisans had failed, well, the king would likely punish them severely anyway, maybe even execute them for their failure, and certainly his father, Bisu Maharana.
Oh.
So to protect his father and all the other artisans from the king's inevitable wrath, Dharmapad made an unimaginable sacrifice.
What did he do?
He climbed back to the top of the newly completed temple and jumped. He jumped into the Chandrabhaga River below, taking his own life. Oh, that's heartbreaking. He saved them, but at such a cost.
An incredible act of self-sacrifice. The king initially was thrilled the pinnacle was in place. He saw the idol apparently swaying, set an auspicious date for the consecration.
Did he find out about Dharmapad?
Eventually, yes. After the ceremony, apparently some strange things started happening, like a large stone falling mysteriously. When King Narasimhadev finally learned the truth about Dharmapad's sacrifice, well, he was deeply affected.
I can imagine.
He declared the temple inauspicious because of the death associated with its completion. He ordered all worship there to stop immediately.
So after all that effort, all that genius, all that sacrifice, it was abandoned.
Essentially, yes. For many years afterwards, this magnificent structure stood deserted. Slowly, inevitably, the dense forest started to grow up around it, reclaiming it.
What a story. It's tragic that such a masterpiece faced that kind of fate so early on. But even in its, semi-ruined state, Konark still speaks volumes about the science and engineering of that time.
Absolutely. Even what remains is mind-blowing. Can you walk us through some of those scientific feats? Let's start with that levitating idol you mentioned. How could that possibly work?
Right. This is one of the most fascinating and debated aspects. The accounts describe this huge 52-ton magnet placed right at the apex, the very top of the temple structure.
52 tons. That's enormous.
Colossal. And it wasn't just for show. This magnet supposedly worked in tandem with iron plates that were strategically embedded within the temple walls.
Okay.
The idea was that this combination of magnetic forces created a unique field that did two things. First, it helped maintain the overall structural integrity and balance of the massive temple.
Right, holding it together magnetically.
In a sense. But second, and this is the really astonishing part, the main idol of Lord Surya, which was made of ashtadhatu, an alloy of 8 metals, wasn't resting on anything.
It just floated.
It appeared to float or levitate in the air within the main sanctum. The magnetic forces essentially created what we might now understand as a form of diamagnetic levitation.
Diamagnetic. What's that exactly?
It's a subtle effect where certain materials, when placed in a strong magnetic field, generate their own weak magnetic field in the opposite direction. It repels the source field slightly. With enough power and precision, theoretically, levitation is possible.
But they figured this out in the 13th century.
That's the puzzle. How they conceived of it, engineered it, and actually made it work with a heavy metal idol. It's still something modern science and engineering find difficult to fully explain. It really challenges our timeline of physics understanding.
Mind-blowing is the only word for it. And this giant magnet, it had other effects too, right? Like on ships.
It did, yes. This is where the story gets even more intriguing, especially for sailors back then. The magnetic field emanating from the temple was supposedly so powerful that it interfered with the compasses of ships sailing along the coast nearby. Their navigation would go completely haywire, compasses would spin, point in the wrong direction.
Seriously, leading to shipwrecks.
Apparently, yes. It could cause ships to lose their bearings and sometimes run aground or get wrecked.
Wow. So this technological marvel was also a navigational hazard. Did it get a nickname because of this?
It did. Portuguese sailors who were very active in that region started calling the Konark Temple the Black Pagoda.
The Black Pagoda. Why black?
Partly because of the dark, weathered stone of the temple, giving it this imposing dark silhouette against the sky, but also because of this dangerous, mysterious effect it had on their navigation. It was this dark, troublesome landmark for them.
Incredible. A testament to the sheer power they harnessed. But, okay, the magnet wasn't the only scientific wonder there. Those wheels, you said they were a sundial.
Yes. Those 12 pairs of wheels, 24 wheels in total, carved into the base of the chariot structure, they obviously symbolize the 12 months of the year, 24 hours.
Right, symbolic.
But they were much more than symbolic. They were a fully functional, incredibly precise, ancient sundial. Probably one of the oldest, largest, and most sophisticated examples in the world.
How did they work?
It's quite ingenious. Each large wheel has 8 main spokes. The gap between any 2 major spokes represents a period of 3 hours. 8 spokes, 3 hours each. That covers 24 hours.
Okay, so the spokes mark 3-hour chunks. How do you tell the exact time?
You'd place your finger, or maybe a small stick, right at the axle, the center of the wheel. The shadow cast by your finger across the wheel would indicate the hour based on which 3-hour segment it fell into.
Clever. But what about minutes?
Even more precise. Around the rim of the wheel, between the spokes, there are these smaller carvings, like beads or segments. In each 90-minute section, halfway between the 3-hour spokes, there are 30 of these segments.
30 segments.
Each segment represents exactly 3 minutes. So by seeing exactly which segment the edge of the shadow touched, you could read the time down to an accuracy of just 3 minutes.
That is absolutely extraordinary precision, built right into the temple walls.
It really showcases their mastery of astronomy, mathematics, and engineering. They understood the movement of the sun with incredible accuracy.
And then there are the horses. 7 horses pulling this giant sun chariot. The sources say they represent the 7 colors of the rainbow.
Yes, that's the common interpretation, symbolizing the VIBGYRR spectrum within sunlight.
Okay, but here's the thing that just stops you in your tracks. How on earth did they know sunlight was made of 7 colors back in the 13th century?
Exactly.
Isaac Newton did his famous prism experiment, splitting light into the spectrum in like 1666. That's 400 years after Konark was built.
It's a profound question, isn't it? It seriously challenges the neat, linear history of scientific discovery we're often taught. How did they know?
Did they prisms? Did they understand light differently?
The sources don't give us a direct answer on the how. It strongly suggests they either had incredibly keen observational skills, maybe noticing phenomena like rainbows and figuring it out, or perhaps they had a completely different philosophical or scientific framework for understanding light that modern science maybe doesn't fully grasp.
It's a real head-scratcher. I heard another theory that the horses are the 7 days of the week.
That theory exists, yes. But many astronomers tend to discount it because it doesn't really connect directly to the sun's properties in the same way the colors do. It feels a bit less integral to the sun theme, and sadly, only one of those horse statues actually remains somewhat intact today.
Just one left. But beyond the symbolism, the sheer accuracy, again you mentioned, the first ray of sunlight hitting the idol.
Yes, that precision in aligning the temple so the sunrise on certain days would directly illuminate the idol in the sanctum. That, again, demonstrates a deep practical understanding of the sun's path, the Earth's orbit, solstices, equinoxes. It's applied astronomy on a grand scale.
And the materials they used, sandstone, granite. That helped at last, didn't it?
Definitely. Choosing those durable stones contributed significantly to its resilience against centuries of weather and natural elements, even before we get into the human interventions.
Okay, so let's talk about those interventions. The temple's history gets pretty turbulent after its initial phase. That amazing magnet, the source of the levitation and the navigational chaos, it didn't stay there, did it?
No. And its removal is seen as a major turning point, leading to the temple's decline. The widely held belief, as we touched on, is that those Portuguese navigators, fed up with the magnet wrecking their compasses and ships,
decided to do something about it?
Exactly. They somehow managed to remove that massive 52-ton magnet from the top of the temple.
How would they even do that? It's huge.
That's another part of the mystery. But the consequence was apparently devastating. Once that key magnetic component was gone, the whole structural balance, which relied on those magnetic forces, was compromised.
It destabilized the whole building.
Precisely. The structure became unbalanced, vulnerable, and started to deteriorate much more rapidly. It's seen as a critical factor in its eventual ruin.
And then on top of that, there was an actual attack, right?
Yeah.
Around 1568 by someone called Kalapahar.
Yes, another significant blow. Kalapahar was a general serving the Bengal Sultanate, and his story is interesting in itself. He was originally a Hindu, a sacred Vaishnava Brahmin named Kalachand Rai, who had converted to Islam.
A convert leading the attack.
Apparently so. Historical accounts say when Kalapahar entered Konark, he was, like many others, stunned by the sight of the main idol seeming to float in mid-air.
But he wasn't impressed in a good way.
No. He then launched an attack with his forces. And crucially, his attack succeeded in dislodging or removing what remained of the magnetic system, possibly including parts of the main magnet if the Portuguese hadn't fully removed it, or perhaps key counterweights.
So he finished the job, magnetically speaking.
It seems that way. And sources say that after his attack removed these key balancing elements, the main tower, the Grand Vimana, which was reportedly 227 feet tall, largely collapsed. turned into a pile of stones.
Devastating.
Absolutely. And this happened during a period when Odisha itself was coming under Muslim rule. And unfortunately, there were repeated efforts to damage or destroy Hindu temples during that time.
What about the idol itself, the one that floated? Did it survive the attack?
Miraculously, yes, in a way. The temple priests, realizing the danger, managed to take the idol down and hide it. They buried it in the sand nearby to protect it.
Smart thinking. What happened to it after that?
Later on, it was secretly transported to Puri. It was eventually installed within the compound of the Great Jagannath Temple, specifically inside a smaller shrine there called the Indra Temple.
So it's safe in Puri.
Well, that's the traditional account. However, as we mentioned earlier, there's still debate. There's a statue of a sun god in the National Museum in New Delhi, and there's ongoing discussion and research about whether that might be the original Konark idol or if the one in Puri is the genuine article. The final word isn't quite in yet.
Another layer to the mystery. For a long time, people thought Konark just fell down on its own, that maybe it was never even finished properly.
Right. That was a common belief for centuries, that it collapsed during construction, a failed project. But the evidence we have now strongly contradicts that idea.
What evidence?
Well, for one, there are copper plate inscriptions, specifically the Kenduli copper plates dating from the reign of King Narasimha V around 1384 CE.
Okay, about a century after it was built.
Exactly. And these inscriptions clearly refer to the temple as being completed and being an active center of worship at that time. So it definitely wasn't unfinished or collapsed early on.
That seems pretty conclusive. Any other accounts?
Yes, there's Abu Fazl. He was the court historian for the Mughal Emperor Akbar. He visited Odisha around 1580 CE.
Okay, late 16th century.
Right. And in his famous work, the Aini Akbari, he mentions the Konark Temple. Significantly, he describes it, but gives no indication at all that it was in ruins. It implies it was still largely intact and impressive in 1580.
So the major damage must have happened after that.
That's what researchers like Thomas Donaldson suggest. His work indicates the main collapse and serious damage likely occurred sometime between the late 16th century, after Abu Fazl's visit, and the early 17th century. But even then, some records suggest worship continued in parts of the complex into the early 17th century.
Fascinating. And one more piece moved, right? The Arena Pillar.
Oh, yes, the Aruna Stamba. This tall, elegant pillar originally stood in front of the main entrance of the Konark Temple. It's dedicated to Aruna, the charioteer of the sun god.
What happened to it?
In the latter half of the 18th century, during the Maratha period in Odisha, a holy man, a Brahmachari Goswami, had it carefully removed from Konark.
And moved where?
He had it transported to Puri and re-erected right in front of the main gate, the Singhadwar, or Lion's Gate, of the Jagannath Temple. And that's where it still stands today, a prominent landmark in Puri, originally from Konark.
It's like pieces of Konark's legacy are scattered but still visible.
Sure.
When you think about temples today, often the focus is purely on faith, maybe commerce, donations.
Right. The structure facilitates worship, maybe collects funds.
But looking at Konark, with all its intricate science and engineering built right in, it suggests a very different purpose for temples back then, doesn't it?
It really does. That's a crucial point the sources emphasize. Ancient temples like Konark, unlike perhaps many modern ones, weren't just built as places for prayer or rituals.
They were more.
Much more. They were designed almost like, well, the sources use terms like an encyclopedia, a museum, or a university created to educate people.
Wow. An encyclopedia in stone.
Exactly. Knowledge was literally encoded into the architecture, the sculptures, the alignments. From this viewpoint, calling Konark just a Hindu temple might even be a bit limiting.
How so?
Because its function as a center of learning meant people from all kinds of backgrounds, all religions, could come there to study astronomy from the wheels, engineering from the structure, maybe metallurgy from the iron clamps, art from the carvings. It was a hub for knowledge exchange.
That makes sense. A place for learning, open to all seekers of knowledge, not just worshippers of one deity. Are there historical accounts that back this idea up?
Yes, there are. For instance, the famous Chinese scholar and traveler Xuanzang, or Tisang as sometimes written, visited the region in the 7th century CE. Now, this was before the current temple was built, but he described the area of Konark.
What did he say?
He mentioned it having many tall, magnificent buildings already. He described it as a place where diverse religions and sects came together. He noted that wealthy and wise people from Hindu traditions, Buddhist traditions, and others coexisted and interacted there. It was already a melting pot.
Even back in the 7th century.
And even earlier. Claudius Ptolemy, the renowned Greek geographer writing way back in the 2nd century CE.
Ptolemy knew about Konark.
He mentioned a place called Kana on the coast, which scholars strongly identify as Konark, and he referred to it as a significant seaport even then.
A seaport, too.
Yes. And ancient Indian texts also refer to it as Kainapara, describing it as an important center for trade in antiquity. So long before the Sun Temple, we know, the location itself was this vibrant crossroads trade, different faiths, learning. It had a rich cosmopolitan history.
So the temple King Narasimhadeva built was layered onto this already significant site.
Precisely. It became the grandest expression of that long heritage, but the roots go very deep.
What an incredible journey this has been. We've gone through the legends, the history, the mind-bending technology of the Konark Sun Temple.
Really, it covers so much ground.
From that mythical origin story of Samba, to the incredible engineering, feats the magnetism, the sundial wheels, understanding the spectrum of light centuries early.
And then the turbulent history, the vision, the sacrifice of Dharmapad, the abandonment, the attacks, the removal of the magnet.
The partial collapse, and then the controversial closure in 1903 that continues today.
Yeah.
It's such a complex and compelling story.
It truly stands as this profound testament to ancient Indian science, art, engineering, and also, well, the complexities of history itself.
It really forces you, as you said, to rethink what was possible back then, the depth of knowledge they clearly possessed.
Absolutely. It pushes the boundaries of how we view the capabilities of ancient civilizations.
Exactly. Which sort of leaves us with a final thought, something for you, our listeners, to maybe ponder. If a structure like the Konark Sun Temple, even in its damaged state, even with its core deliberately sealed off for over 100 years, if it can still reveal such incredible scientific and engineering insights from so long ago, what else might be out there?
What other knowledge is hidden in plain sight?
Right. What other astonishing discoveries could be waiting inside ancient sites all around the globe if we just started looking at them differently?
Not just as temples or tombs or ruins,
but as potential archives. Vast, maybe untold archives of human ingenuity, of forgotten science, of a deeper understanding of the world. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? What hidden knowledge about our own past, and maybe even insights relevant to our future, is still out there, just waiting to be unlocked?